She walked into that Sunday lunch as a wife. Before dessert was served, her husband introduced another woman as her replacement. My name is Claire Sutton. For 8 years I was the quiet woman in the navy dress at the Hargrove family table, the one who smiled through polished cruelty and called it marriage. That afternoon, my husband Marcus arrived with Serena veil on his arm, cream silk dress, gold jewelry catching the chandelier light, her hand resting on his sleeve like she'd been there for years. Marcus didn't look ashamed. He looked proud. "This is Serena," he said, his voice smooth and cool. "She understands my world. She knows how to move in the circles our family belongs to." Every eye in the room turned toward me. His mother Victoria Hargrove lifted her wine glass and waited for me to lower my head, the way I always had. I didn't. For 8 years I had known the invisible rules of that house. Stay quiet. Stay graceful. Do not embarrass the family. Do not let anyone see pain. So I had swallowed words until they turned heavy in my chest. I had smiled through birthday dinners where Marcus forgot my place at the table. I had thanked Victoria for compliments that were really insults. I had stood beside Marcus at charity events and business receptions, letting him shine while I quietly fixed what he had broken behind closed doors. Marcus stepped toward me, voice low and sharp. "Claire, sit down." The old me might have obeyed, instead I placed my napkin on the table, one clean fold, and stood up. Serena let out a small laugh. "Maybe this isn't the best moment for a scene." I turned to her. There was no hatred in my face. That almost made it worse. "You're right," I said. "A scene would require something worth fighting for." One of Marcus's cousins looked down at his plate. An uncle shifted in his chair. Near the kitchen doorway, a server froze with a coffee pot in her hand. Victoria's voice turned cold. "You will not speak like that in this house." I've watched my tone in this house for 8 years. I kept my voice too quiet for drama, too steady for weakness. That ends today. Marcus's jaw tightened. He was used to tears. Tears could be dismissed. He was used to silence. Silence could be controlled. My calmness left him nothing to grab. "You're acting like a victim," he snapped. All I did was tell the truth. "Serena fits this family." I looked at him for a long moment. I saw the young man who once held my hand in a small coffee shop and told me he was afraid of failing. The husband who asked for my advice then repeated my words in boardrooms as his own. The son who let his mother treat his wife like furniture because it was easier than defending her. I picked up my purse. "Emily," he warned. "No." "Marcus." I walked toward the hall and paused beside a framed wedding portrait from 8 years ago. In the photograph I was smiling with white roses in my hands. Marcus stood beside me, handsome, untouched by failure. Back then he had still looked at me like I was home. Then I remembered the years after. The late-night calls with bankers while Marcus slept. The private meetings with investors who trusted my name more than his promises. The quiet signatures. The personal guarantees. The endless moments where I had saved his pride and let him call it leadership. He never asked how the doors opened. He simply walked through them. Behind me, Serena's voice floated into the hallway. "Maybe she just needs attention." I turned back. Just enough for her to see my face. Attention is what people ask for when they have nothing else. I said, "I'm not asking for anything." Serena looked away first. Marcus's face darkened. He hated this version of me. The calm version. "This family gave you everything," he said. I looked past him at the dining room. The polished silver. The crystal glasses. The people who had watched me be humiliated and called it good manners. "No." I said, "This family taught me what everything costs." Victoria stepped forward. pearls resting against her throat. Pride ruins women who forget their place. For years that sentence would have cut me open. I had trimmed myself down to fit inside rooms that never welcomed me. But now I understood. They had never mistaken my silence for kindness. They had mistaken it for permission. My phone buzzed in my purse. Marcus's eyes dropped toward it immediately. "Who keeps calling you?" I didn't answer. I already knew. The bank. The final restructuring meeting. The agreement Marcus had been bragging about all week as his victory. He had no idea my signature was the only thing holding it together. I adjusted the strap of my purse and turned toward the front door. Marcus followed. "We are not done." I placed my hand on the door handle. Then I looked back one last time. "No, Marcus," I said quietly. "You're not done." I opened the door. And that's the problem. Outside, the afternoon air felt almost too bright. I breathed for the first time all day behind me through the open doorway. Serena tried to reclaim the room. "Let her go," she said. "She wants everyone to chase her." Victoria nodded. "Exactly. Claire has always been too sensitive." Marcus wanted to believe them. Serena was simple. She laughed at his jokes, admired his name, looked perfect beside him. She knew which charity galas required a black dress. She knew which families deserved both cheeks and which deserved a cold handshake. Serena knew how to enter a room. I knew how to keep the walls from falling down. Marcus had spent so many years worshipping appearances that he could no longer tell the difference. His Uncle Robert sat quietly at the dining table staring at the beige envelope I had left beside my plate. He reached for it. Victoria snapped. "Robert, leave that alone." He opened it anyway. The first page slid out. Then the second. A signed letter from a legal office. His eyes moved across the lines once. Then again. The color drained from his face. "Daniel, Marcus," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Claire isn't leaving empty-handed." "What are you talking about?" Robert held up the document. "She's the guarantor." The word struck the room like glass shattering on marble. Victoria's hand flew to her pearls. Marcus blinked as if the sentence had been spoken in another language. Serena looked from face to face. For the first time since she'd walked into that mansion, no one was looking at her dress. They were looking at the paper. And paper does not care about charm. Outside, I had reached the bottom step. A car waited near the fountain. The driver held the rear door open. Marcus stepped into the doorway. For the first time that afternoon, he looked less like a husband choosing another woman and more like a man watching his safety net. "Walk away, Claire," he called. I stopped beside the car, didn't turn fully, gave him only the side of my face, enough to show I'd hurt him, not enough to suggest I still belonged to him. A black sedan rolled through the open gate behind my car. A man in a dark suit stepped out with a woman carrying a briefcase. I recognized the man, the bank's senior representative. He crossed the path toward me, relief on his face. "Miss Sutton, we tried calling. We were told the family meeting would happen after lunch." Marcus stared. "What meeting?" The woman with the briefcase shifted uncomfortably. "The final confirmation meeting. We need Miss Sutton's in-person approval before the restructuring agreement can proceed." Serena took one step back. Victoria's lips parted but no sound came out. Marcus looked at me as if I had betrayed him by being more important than he'd allowed himself to believe. "You were going to sign today?" I looked past him toward the dining room where my untouched plate still sat beside the chair he'd tried to replace. "Yes," I said, "before you introduced Serena as the woman who belonged in your world." No one breathed. I placed the folder into the banker's hands. But I will not sign today. Marcus went pale. The banker glanced between us, understanding more than he wished to. I stepped toward the open car door and turned back one last time. This family has spent years believing my silence meant I had nothing to say. I looked at Marcus. Now you can read the envelope. And I got into the car. 3 days later, the Hargrove dining table held laptops, legal folders, and audit reports instead of crystal and silver. Bank representatives spoke in calm voices that made Victoria's skin crawl. I sat at the head of the table, not in the wife's chair, not beside Marcus. At the head, my attorney Grace Lowe sat to my right, the bank's restructuring team to my left. Marcus sat across from me, stripped of the performance. No easy smile, no Serena touching his arm. Just a man facing the wreckage his pride had helped create. The audit was thorough and brutal. The reckless expansion Marcus had dismissed my warnings about. The family withdrawals Victoria had labeled household necessities. The vendors waiting to be paid. The investor confidence held together by one fragile promise, my assets, my name. One truth at a time. The buried decisions surfaced by evening. The conclusion was impossible to avoid. The company could survive, but not as it had been. Independent oversight, quarterly audits, frozen family withdrawals, Victoria removed from all informal spending approvals, and my role formally documented in the company record. Not whispered, not implied. Documented. Marcus signed first. Then Robert. Then the bank. Finally, the folder was placed in front of me. I read the final page carefully, especially the section acknowledging my personal guarantees, my prior financial support, and my required protections going forward. Then I signed. Marcus looked at me. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You're welcome." No warmth, no cruelty, just closure. I stood, gathered my folder, and walked toward the door. This time no one ordered me to stay. This time they all understood. I had saved the company, but I had not returned to my place. I had taken it. Weeks later I moved into a quiet apartment overlooking the city. No marble halls, no family portraits watching my every move. Just sunlight and mornings that belonged to me. I returned to work under my own name. Not Mrs. Hargrove. Not Marcus's wife. Not the silent force behind another man's pride. My own name. And one afternoon, signing the first contract for my consulting firm, I paused. My hand did not shake. For the first time in years I was not saving a family that had erased me. I was building a future that honored me. Never confuse silence with weakness. Some people carry the weight of a whole family, a whole business, a whole life, without asking for applause. But even the steadiest heart has a limit. Respect the people who stand beside you before life teaches you their value through their absence. Walking away is not always giving up. Sometimes it is the first brave step toward becoming yourself again.